It is hoped that the Analyze Results workspace is where you'll spend most of your time within StressTester due to the efficiencies of not having to script your user journeys. The Analyze workspace is split into two areas. The left-hand area has navigation trees and other fields that are used to restrict what is shown within the right-hand area. This workspace can be used in real time, i.e. when a performance test is being executed, or to look at the results of a previously executed performance test. Unlike some other tools, StressTester does not in any way normalize your data, so when looking at current tests or at previous tests, you can drill down to a finite level of granularity. The top tree within the navigation area allows you to select the performance test of interest. I'm going to select the previously executed one, tutorial test. The second set of trees allow me to select the user journeys and resource monitors that I would like to display in the right-hand two panels of the workspace. So let's have a look at the user journey performance data for this test. I can then specify a start and end date range in order to restrict the data that's displayed. And the key thing is to consider the analysis mode. Step group is analogous with a web page, so this means I'm analyzing the response times of whole pages. All steps allows me to analyze the response times of each individual request that was made against the application. Initially, I'm going to work at step group level. If this was a live performance test, I could set a refresh interval. As it's not, I simply click Show Results. You can see the right-hand side, the graphs and the data tables have been updated to display the data that I have selected in the navigation trees. Below the navigation trees are summary details that show the start date of this test, the amount of time it ran for, and the number of errors that occurred. If I wish to see the errors, I can click on the Details button. Each error can be further inspected by hovering over it and reading the information message. The top level of this workspace analyzes data for all of the user journeys. So I can see on the graph here there is a line for the browse and buy user journey and the change user details journey. If I want to drill down and analyze just a specific user journey, i.e. one specific business transaction, I simply double click on its name within the data table. This can be thought of as moving me to a lower level of analysis where I'm looking now just at the single user journey, and again I can select to see either the step groups, the web pages within that user journey, or I can select to see all of the steps, all of the requests that were made as part of that user journey. Again, I will go back to web page analysis. I will then select all of the web pages and I will compare their average response time using a pie chart. Immediately that allows me to see which of the web pages are running slowly on average and which I do not need to worry about. The same data is displayed within a table at the bottom of the screen, and this table is fully sortable, so if I wish to see the web page that had the worst response time during the performance test, click once to sort in ascending order, click again to sort in descending order. This allows me to easily see that the search for book page had the worst performance at all during the performance test. However, the worst performing step on average is the confirmation step, and that correlates with the graph above it. To go back to analysing the total performance test, I click the User Journey Analysis button to return to the previous level. The information screens that are displayed at any analysis level and for any analysis mode can be configured so that you can have access to the information that is pertinent to you. To configure the screens, click the Configure This Screen link at the top. You then have the choice of choosing the analysis level, all user journeys, or the steps within a user journey, and for any analysis level you have the choice of the analysis mode, whether you want to configure the graphs and data tables that are shown at step group level or when you're analysing at all steps level. As well as configuring the actual graphs and data tables that are shown, you should also be aware that there is a full graphing engine behind each graph. To access it, right-click and select Properties. Depending on the type of chart, pie chart, line chart, histogram, etc., you'll have access to different properties. From here you can change the name. For instance, I might change it to per sec as opposed to per second. You can choose what is plotted on the screen, including changing the label names, the axis range, whether it's auto adjusted or you want to specify a certain minimum and maximum response time that you're interested in, and the appearance. Some people that use other tools will be used to this type of graph. When you're happy with the properties, you click OK and they're immediately applied. More than one graph or data table can be opened at the same time. Again, this applies to during an actual performance test in real time or post-execution. So for example, it's very common to monitor the number of requests that are being made against an application at the same time as looking at the response data. This is a typical way of tiling this. So one is shown below the other, and I can easily see that as the number of users ramped up, this is the black line on the requests per second, the number of requests went up as well. This shows there's no bottleneck within this application. If we investigate this average response time per second graph again, we can see that during a period of the test between 1720 approximately and 1722, response times rose much higher than they were for the remainder of the test. We can also see that this occurred when about 20 users were added to the system and the response times continued to degrade all the way up to the 30 that were specified as the maximum for the performance test. If you're interested within a specific point on one of the displayed graphs, click on the graph and holding down the left mouse, drag an oblong around the area of interest, and when you release the left mouse button, StressTester will zoom in onto that area. If you're interested in a specific value on the graph, hover over the point. StressTester will display the name of the user journey, the time of that point, and the value. To zoom the graph back out, right click, choose auto range and the axis that you want to zoom back out. StressTester will automatically reposition the graph as it was before. The final thing to consider is the reason for this performance spike. Analyzing the causes for poor performance is covered within another tutorial, but very quickly I will zoom in on the area, and by right clicking now within the graph and choosing correlate with resource monitors, I am asking StressTester to check all of the resource monitor metrics that were returned during the performance test to see if any of the metrics exceeded the thresholds that have been specified within the resource monitor pack. StressTester does that and tells me that the CPU total utilization indeed exceeded its threshold. By clicking select, it is now drawn within the graph. You're reading the resource monitor lines against the far right scale, which shows the resource monitor metric as a percentage of the maximum value specified within the monitor pack. And as can be seen, during this period, the CPU utilization flatlines at 100%. To see how CPU varied throughout the whole duration of the performance test, again, by zooming back out, auto-ranging both axes, I can see that the CPU had a small spike at the beginning of the test, and then its utilization rose as the number of simulated users rose, and when the number of simulated users got to about 12, CPU hit 100% and stayed at 100% until the end of the performance test. This allows me to draw the conclusion that the application requires more CPU than is available to support more than 12 users. With this type of information on a graph, it's very common to want to share the results. In the properties window, you can change the name. And then right click to save the file away into a file of your own choice.